Good morning.
Good morning.
Wonderful to see you, and welcome to those of you who are online today for our forum. And I'm so excited today to give you an update on what pastoral care and this congregation has been up to during these past COVID, almost 2 years ago today, right? 2 years of the day. COVID years, what has emerged from this community? And I think you will feel similarly to me that, you know, this community always seems to rise to the occasion of circumstances we're in, and that's the story we're going to tell you about today. I want to first introduce people. They're going to speak, and the first, well, I didn't introduce myself, did I? I am Sally Howard. My pronouns are she, her, and I am one of the associate rectors here at All Saints Church. And a person to my left is Thomas Diaz. And Thomas is the director of Connection and Care here at All Saints Church. Was a very, very active volunteer for a number of years, and we are so fortunate to have him on staff. And next to Thomas is Christine Hartman, and she is on the vestry, and she is the vestry chair of Children, Youth, and Family. And next to her is Staci Kennelly, who is our, I've known Staci for years, and I still get that wrong, is our coordinator of spiritual direction. And these extraordinary people, they're just extraordinary in every way. And we are, again, just so blessed in this community with active, grounded, spiritually grounded, loving, grace in action people. And these are three such people. Also, I wanted to let you know we will have a Q&A today after we make the presentation on the Community Care Alliance. And that number is 910-839-8272, 910-839-8272. So if you have questions, you can type them in at any point, and we will get to those. So now I'm going to move over to my other chair. Is this on? Yes, it is. Oh, that's wonderful. All right, enjoying the panel here. So I wanted to give you a background, kind of the origin story we were talking about how Community Care Alliance came into existence. And it really started probably 4 years ago, in a way, with Mike and I talking about how do we increase collaboration, both in the staff, collaborative functioning in the staff, but also, you know, with, again, this amazingly gifted congregation that we have. How do we increase our working together? And part of that discussion was about pastoral care. And as the director of pastoral care, healing and health and spiritual growth, you know, over the years, that office has become siloized in some ways, right? And the discussion with Mike and I included how do we enhance the ability of the community to care for each other, because this community does care for each other, but how can we facilitate that even more? And so we began to think about how do we, you know, what we do one-on-one in the pastoral care offices. We may get a call of a parishioner in need, and then we reach out to the community and try to find within our congregation sometimes people that can help, or in the community itself, outside of All Saints. And it's been more of a one-on-one process, right? And so that, along with the arrival of the pandemic, we really felt it was imperative to move pastoral care into the community as well as in, the Office of Pastoral Care. And so that is the beginning with thinking about what is this pandemic going to mean to us. And Christine, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay. Here's the other part of the origin story. So on Friday, March 11th, 2 days ago, I returned home from a business trip. It was my first business trip for 2 years. 2 years to the day, I arrived back home from my other business trip. And 2 years to the day, I had a phone conversation with Mike Kinman about the possibility of working on this effort as we realized what was going to be happening within the next few days, that we were facing a lockdown and some isolation. And so the initial work of the Congregational response team started. And I just want to let everybody know the scope of what happened in those first couple of months of the lockdown, because I think it's really important. I think it informs everything else we're doing. We had almost 80 people who were volunteering as part of the Congregational response team. We'd be here all morning if I listed all the names. You know who you are, and thank you. We had almost 80 people doing a variety of things, but the first thing we did was we called folks, especially older folks who maybe didn't have emails. We reached out to people, and within the matter of 2 weeks, I actually tallied it up this morning. In 2 weeks, our 80 volunteers had contacted over 1,500 households. And boy, yes. And all of those volunteers called people, and it really, and then we started making more calls. We wrote notes. We were just trying to brainstorm ways to how do we keep our community connected and cared for during this time. And Thomas will talk more about the amazing steering committee that helped with that, but I really want to lift up those many volunteers who just said yes. That's what they said, yes, tell me what you need. We had an errands team, we had people delivering prayer shawls, we had people picking up prescriptions for folks who were really compromised and couldn't go out. And that is pastoral care, all of that. And so a perfect kind of transition into what had been being talked about for many years. And so that was pastoral care in action in a time of great need in our community. So that was the beginning of the Congregational response team. And then as we were working with that, we realized we needed to have maybe another component of that, especially that maybe dealt with trauma and other needs around the needs of our community. Yeah. Thomas?
Well, thank you, Christine. So let me start by recognizing, do you remember when the CDC initially said that this was going to be an 8-week moment for us in this human existence of pandemic life? Clearly, this is not an 8-week experiment because we're now here at the 2-year mark. So the reason why I bring that up is when we came together as the community resource team, I think we initially were under the impression that this was going to be a short-term lived experience. And as Christine mentioned, it was really the pastoral care component was we need to reach out to our community, and that got accomplished. When we entered the 3rd month of pandemic life, it became, the reality was sinking in, that this was going to be a more of a longer duration of pandemic life, and we wanted to really configure a way to provide what we would, as we categorize it as our internal resources here at All Saints to our community. The problem was, how do we get them to a community that is now sheltered in place when so many of these ministries already were primarily handled in person? And so what came out of that was the community care team. And this community care team was really a place for us to really to find a way to get out to our community and say, here is how we can help and support you during these challenging times. And most importantly, don't do this alone. right? That was the main highlight. Don't do this alone. We have ministries and we have folks here, as you can, what 80 folks that wanted just to make phone calls. That list was more expansive because we wanted to make sure that we were providing both the pastoral care component, but most importantly, that we were being beloved community as we were going through this pandemic life. And so the community care team was really meant to help support those efforts, and really to recognize that we have so many rich ministries here at All Saints. And those ministries are not just programs, or they're just not something on paper, they're people. The people who provide the well-being and care for each other. And that's what needed to happen when we were still figuring out, and I think even at the 3rd month mark that we were like, well, this should be ending with, probably 2 more months. We should be done. And that was not the case. And so we learned a lot by putting this group together, which really what this group was doing was just evaluating all of the ministries that we have here at All Saints. And how do we, one, keep them active, even if it's on an online platform? And 2, for folks who were new to our community, how do we get them in to recognize they're still part of this beloved community, and yet the support is ready for you? This consisted of, I've lost count of how many Zoom meetings this group had, but it was plenty. Yes, but something came out of that, which I'll speak a little bit in just a moment. But the spirit of collaboration and the spirit of just imagining what beloved community could look like was really what was starting to take place, and that was more I would kind of consider as the exciting part of this work. And I know we'll kind of dive into that in just a bit. But that was kind of the essence of community care team. Yeah.
And so out of that was born, now that we know that this is our new normal, right? We decided that we do need maybe a group to gather that everything we've learned in the last 2 years. And so this is how we gave birth to Community Care Alliance. And so the ideas of Community Care Alliance is that, one of the main things I think that I took away from both of these groups is how amazing the people at All Saints are. Really, there is just, if there's something you wanted to know, I am pretty sure we have an expert in that field here at All Saints. And it's beautiful. And, I don't know if y'all remember, but do you remember the old days in church where there would be a cork board and it'd be like, Ryan teaches guitar, and then you could take a little tag home and you could call Ryan. And we just felt like in this day and age, we need that. We need each other. The only way we're going to get through this is each other. We need each other. That's how trauma heals, is each other. So what can you do? That is one of the main questions Community Care Alliance would like to ask you. What do you love to do? How do you help other people? And it can be as simple as, I love to cook. I love to make soup. Great. Can you call us and let us know that? Because we're going to have people who are sick, and I'd love to call you. I love to pick things up for people. I like to take people on to their errands. Can you let us know that? We would love to know that. We have a list of amazing volunteers, of people who did like running errands, people who like letter writing and things like that. But anything, we would love to know what you love to do so that we together can try to begin to help each other heal.
Yeah. Thank you so much, you guys. And just to talk again a little bit about the trauma, which I know we all know we've been through, right? But, at the heart of, this COVID trauma is really like the heart of our attachments as human beings, and we have attachment, we are created wonderfully, gloriously attached. and that goes throughout life, right? It never changes, that need. And with the pandemic, you know, one of the basics when you're in danger is to be in proximity of the people that love you, right? And with the pandemic at the same time, proximity was dangerous.
Yeah.
And, you know, in childhood, if people experience that, it actually produces a disorganized attachment where children feel like they need somebody and they want to go close, but they have to get away also because they're dangerous. And I don't think, you know, doesn't happen in the same way as adults, but, you know, that need for safe connection is just basic, you know, to who we are. And so, you know, part of what we continue to, you know, recover from, I think, is that isolation and that sense of connection, not being safe. And I would say, you know, one more thing that happened in this amazing process, and really, you know, to watch this emerge, and it came out of this just swell of love and care in this community. And the richness that came out of it and the connections were just astounding. And we're like, okay, as it went on, this can't go away. This is the way forward, right? Of, you know, continuing to find out how we can connect people with their gifts, their passions, also to ministries within the church, you know, like counseling, pastoral ministry, many things, and the resources within the church, other groups, small groups, LGBTQ plus ministries, all those things. And that's part of where it came out. Okay, Christine.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the really important points, is that the Community Care Alliance is here to support everything that's happening here. Not just folks who are new to our community, but folks who've been here for a while. But this is a big place. There's a lot going on, and especially for the new folks, they may know, I want to work with the Foster Care Project, and so they'll go right there. Some folks might not know, I'm not sure how I fit in here, and they can come to us and say, what do you think? We can have a talk about that and guide them to maybe ministries that they might enjoy. And then there's that more kind of one-on-one connection is, I'm sick, I can't get food. Oh, I know somebody who likes to make soup. So there's all these different ways that we can connect. And I want to tell a quick story about during the, well, we're still in a pandemic. So in the last couple of years, I was having an email exchange with one of the volunteers who made a lot of calls, and we happened to start talking about weeding and how much she loved to weed, and we were just kind of joking around about that. A few days later, I got an email from somebody who was having struggles with their yard because they weren't physically able to weed, and they were getting some comments about that from their neighbors. And I've got somebody over here who loves to weed, somebody over here who needs weeding. Guess what? You each have just met someone cool, and the weeds are going to go away. So that is just a very simple illustration of how these connections can really make an impact. And having a central place where folks where we can help coordinate that as best we can, I think will be really helpful for this larger community. And one more point I have about that is that there may be somebody in your life who you know likes to weed, and you may hear somebody else who needs weeding. You have the power to connect those folks too. That is pastoral care as well. It's not just the Community Care Alliance, it's not just whatever's structured here. All of us have pastoral care opportunities every day, and if you see it, take it. You know, this is all of our joyous responsibility to each other in this beloved community.
Yeah, that's good. So I wanted to kind of give a little kind of insight and preview of how this group worked for really the beginning of the pandemic. And as Sally kind of mentioned, it came clear once we kind of hit the year half mark of it that this really project could not go away. And most importantly, that we kind of concluded that this was not well, yes, initially it was a pandemic response, but more importantly, this was us trying to now become beloved community in what we would consider now as a new normal for our lives. So I'm going to kind of call upon some Brene Brown wisdom right here and give you this quote because I love it, and I really believe this was the essence of the leadership team of the community care team and community resource team. So here's the quote. "The courage to be vulnerable is not about winning or losing. It's about the courage to show up when you can't predict or control the outcome."
Can you read that again?
I will read it one more time. You bet. One more time. Here we go. "The courage to be vulnerable is not about winning or losing. It's about the courage to show up when you can't predict or control the outcome." So I would say that as we were entering now maybe the 6th month of this pandemic life, and recognizing that we still were trying to battle what the current data, what the numbers were looking like, and knowing that there was, at the time, seemed there was no really end in sight, and that was scary. A lot of the discussion that came into the group was, well, what do we do now? We've reached out to everyone. We're kind of getting used to online church in a way where, not that we have not done that here before, well, we were all doing it at once. And I think the power of this particular quote from Brene Brown is that we did have to show up, regardless of knowing where this was going to lead to, and there was no prediction. But the only prediction we did have is that we did have beloved community in the foresight of people are still here. Our community is still church. And so we had to kind of figure out a way to give that life, to give it hope. And so what kind of came out of that was weekly, this leadership team, which I'll mention names in just a moment, we would come together and really, I think we did 2 main kind of things in that particular weekly meeting. It was one, we checked in with each other, which then I think became a model for us to say, there is something when we actually do check in with each other and really check in with each other. And really, and I think it's more of the essence of, how are you showing up today? And many of us showed up saying, we're scared. Not scared for one's own health, but scared of, are we going to be able to meet the challenge of assuring that we're going to be okay, or maybe not be okay? And how can we even be the community that is, at the moment, really at the time, felt isolating, and we were just hunkered down. And I think the form of connection was kind of losing its essence, and we wanted to bring that back up again, right? So that really was the bones of it. And the second part was, okay, we've had a week. What's the challenge at the moment? What do we need to challenge at the moment? And who within our community can we call upon to be pastoral care? And I think you're going to kind of hear a theme among the 4 of us, that pastoral care is not necessarily a department here at All Saints Church. It's all of you.
Yes.
And so we had to figure out a way to empower you to go out and do pastoral care.
Yeah.
Right? So that is really, well, I should say at the core was the spirit of collaboration. And in that collaboration was having the need to have the courage and vulnerability to show up. And so I want to recognize folks who dared to show up, not knowing the prediction of the outcome. And this is an amazing team that really was dedicated for a year and a half, almost, into this group. And they're still here. I think we should recognize, just because it's not just the four of us, and that's why I'm going to recognize them right now. But it's more than just the leadership team. It's also every single person who dared to show up to be church online, who dared to show up to be, the person who just needed to hear a message of hope, right? That's who we want to recognize first and foremost, is the beloved community, because we all in some ways had to show up.
Yeah.
And we did, and we continue to do so. But it did take a team to assure that we can do it. So here is the team. So I'm going to first call out, I'm going to actually ask for one thing. When I'm done reciting the names, I know some of our team's probably watching this morning. If you can just please give them a round of applause, because I'm telling you, this was a team that, for me personally, provided comfort to know that I wasn't crazy in my own mind, thinking the ways of how scared I was and just not knowing, the prediction and the outcome. So the lay volunteers of this team consist of, at the time I was a lay volunteer as well, the three of us, Staci Kennelly, Christine Hartman, and myself. And then so we have Nancy Necker, Giancarlo De Mesa, Judy Van Fleet. Hi Judy, miss you. Kim Slayton, Steve Williams, Susan Brown, Risa Willie-Deemer, and on staff was Alfredo Fagarino, Sally Howard, and Juliana Serrano. Please give this group a round of applause. So, to go more deeper and expand out on the collaboration, let's talk about that.
Well, thank you, Thomas, for that. And, it's a good example, I think, also of the model of leadership that we really are adopting at All Saints Church, which is a collaborative model of leadership. And, thinking about hierarchy, we think about, rather than a hierarchy of power, a hierarchy of responsibility, and creating conditions in this community for all people to thrive. And, I believe that God is a developmental God. God made us. And so part of our role, is to create those conditions for each other. And so it's a different way of thinking about hierarchy than what we thought about, in the past. I would also want to mention, in terms of volunteers, also our long-term vestry pastoral care committee, which includes Blaine Kavanaugh, also Risa Worthy-Deemer, and Chris Foltz. I think Blaine has been with pastoral care since 2002. So, and one of the beautiful things to me is that team worked with this team, and it was really a beautiful work in that way. Mm-hmm. And Staci, you're going to talk more about small groups?
Yeah, and maybe how, you're wondering how can Community Care Alliance maybe help you. So let's say you've been here for, 5 years or 5 minutes, and you want to know how you can get connected to All Saints. Give us a call. We will be happy to chat with you for a little bit, learn what your passions are, learn what you want to learn more about. And I'm pretty sure we already have a ministry or a program that we can connect you with. And if we don't, yay, we have a great opportunity for you to start a ministry or a small group. Then there's also ways that you can create these small groups with each other, right? Book clubs are not just for Lent. You could also, I love reading mystery novels. I am positive there are 6 more people at All Saints that also love to read mystery novels. Yeah, me too, right? I'm super addicted to Inspector Gamache right now. So I feel like there's so many ways that we would like to help you guys get connected. I think that is what we're here for, is we want you guys to feel connected to each other and feel like that you can connect with other people. And we do want to give a shout out to those of you who are online only. We know we have so many people that don't live here in Pasadena, that don't even live here in California, that have been attending All Saints. We would love to help you too. There are plenty of things that we are still doing online that we would love to connect you with. And then we could also help coordinate, small groups for you guys. Community Care Alliance, our heart goal is to help you guys feel connected and also help you guys realize that we need you just as much as, we all need church.
So how does this all work in a practical level? We're going to figure that out. We have a lot figured out right now, and this will definitely, as we move forward, it will all adapt and transform into more and more of what it needs to be. But we do have an email. It's communitycare@allsaints-pass.org. You don't have to remember that, but if you want to jot it down, that's great. We will have information on the website about Community Care Alliance, and then we will also have a way that you can text. I know for some folks, especially maybe younger generations, sending an email is like a carrier pigeon. So you will be able to text us, and we can, we're trying to be as to get a hold of us in many different ways, and then we go from there. And so why would you email us? Email us if you want to volunteer, but you're not sure how you want to. Email us if you have a need and you're not sure if this community can help you, and if so, how. Email us what else? Yeah, just to reach us. I mean, if you want to get involved in some way, and we can help you talk through that if there's not something coming clear to you. And if you don't know where to go, we'll reach us, and we will find you. In a way, we're like a little concierge. Think of it as a concierge desk at a hotel. Where should I go for dinner? Well, this is what I like to eat, and whatever, we'll find a place for you. And the other thing that I really want to say is that I want to also emphasize that our pastoral care line is always active for immediate pastoral care needs. This is really important. If you have an immediate pastoral care need, please call the pastoral care line. It is 626-298-9551. None of what we're doing here replaces that, or really anything else that's going on in pastoral care. We are supporting everything else that's going on there. So,
I want to go off the script a little bit, add one more thing to it. I think also it's important, especially as we kind of hit the 2-year mark, that another kind of appreciation and shout out to really all of the ministry leaders here at All Saints. And let me just say that part of the beauty of this team was, again, we were just not coming and reinventing the wheel per se. We actually wanted to give empowerment to the ministry leaders to continue to do the work. So many of you in this room are ministry would be considered as ministry leaders, or just viewing this morning. And really, even if you don't have, let's say, you're running a particular ministry at All Saints, you are still a ministry leader. Because again, the emphasis was that that's what beloved community is. So it's really more than just the team of putting this together. It's all of you, again, who were willing to dare to show up. So I also wanted to give that of appreciation, because that really was, another emphasis to the team.
Yeah, thanks, Thomas. I would agree. And I love that term concierge. Concierge of love, concierge of care and connection. And it's really that, because All Saints is a big community, right? And that's a wonderful thing, and it's got its challenges, right? But, this group, and the 4 of us are meeting weekly so that pastoral care, it's all pastoral care, right? But so it's not like things aren't going to get lost from pastoral care. We're actually, enhancing and expanding, what it means and the capacity of this community to care, right, for each other. And so we're all very knowledgeable of what is available within the church, and that the ministries continued. This is not a replacement for ministries. It's meant to be a way of getting people, we keep saying it, getting people connected, to those. Yeah. And it's interesting because we talked as we were preparing for the forum about different examples maybe of things like we need. And one of the things I shared with the group is someone had approached me last week who really has a heart for building a support group for people with cancer. And we've had that before at All Saints, and some groups kind of come and go in terms of, but and I was going to bring that today and say that's an example of where we need somebody with some medical knowledge to join. And in fact, somebody stepped in. So now I need to think of another example, but I can do that. Trust me. I can think. But the point of that is really that if you feel something in your heart that you have an interest in doing, trust it. Just trust it. And I'll tell a very short story if I can, but I think my path, this may sound funny, but one of my paths to the priesthood was responding to a Lenten offering on slow food, and I love to cook. And I began to think a lot more about the table, and it was a lot of other things. But, one of the priests here at the time said to me, trust your leanings. Trust your leaning. And so, we all sometimes need each other. We all need each other, and we all have a lot to give. And it's really, this is a group that helps us do that better. And then Thomas came in, to his position, and I wrote down the title because I always forget it. That's terrible, Thomas. The Director of Connection and Care, how appropriate is that? And that's also because this really is in our circles model. This is beloved community is congregational development and pastoral care together. And Thomas works both sides of that group. Yeah. Okay. And
Yeah, I think we would love to open it up if anybody has questions, either in the room or online.
As I'm walking back here, I will say a question I have is, if you find someone who really loves filling out college student financial aid forms, send them over.
Oh, that could be a business.
Hi. First, a couple things. I wanted to congratulate you guys, because I think it's immensely countercultural what you're doing these days, because it feels like, not just with the pandemic, but the way our culture is moving into isolation and kind of like walling off the world and one another for self-preservation. And I think just the act of knowing that we're not alone and that people need that. The other thing is, I'm so thrilled to hear about this, because I feel like for many years pastoral care kind of fell on ministers, and I still flash on Zelda Kennedy. She was a powerhouse, but she was a one-woman band in many ways, and I don't think we all saw our roles. It was, we would try and help, but I think we're all called to the role of participation, and that's what gives our faith, the spark, is we want to be needed. And so, and the other thing I wanted to ask was, is there a registry of sorts? So when people come in, not so much you guys wait for us to come to you, but All Saints comes to them, and it's almost part of an intake, like, what's your story? What's your strengths? You don't want to overwhelm like newcomers, like, hey, you're going to be cooking this weekend, but make it part of a registry, almost like time banking was 10, 20 years ago, people putting that in. So.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that question. And yes, and I would say to respond to the latter part of it is, that's the exciting of kind of opportunity that we're looking at to how do we create a registry so that we know who's out there. I would say that currently right now a lot of it is just based on just networking and who not basically who you know, but just, I try to gather skill sets and folks and interest and put, to make sure to put that to work. But, as we kind of expand it and grow in Community Care Alliance, that is going to be such the need to make sure it's up and running, and that we're assuring that there is a place for really everyone, no matter your skill set and where it's going. I don't know if you two or Sally want to add to that?
Yeah, I would just say thanks. I think that's a great idea, and we might call you to get some ideas about how to do it, because organizing the information is part of what, we're trying to do, so that we're really tracking all those things, what people, what they want to do, what they need, what the follow-up is, and so it would be great to get that information. Yeah, and just in reference also to what you said about, pastoral care, I think that's absolutely right. And, even with Zelda full-time and me half-time, it was incredibly difficult to, and if you can imagine all the work that these guys are doing, right, that's what we did, the two of us with Anna, right? It's not sustainable, and it doesn't do what we need to do in terms of being pastoral care for each other. So thank you very much.
Yeah, and I think something that you said that is beautiful is we need to be needed. I love that. This is so true. We need each other, and we need to know that we're needed by each other. So what do you do? What makes you come alive? Can you call us? Because if we don't have it going on already, we have the tools to help you get it going on. That's
funny. Thank you for being here. This is really good, interesting for me. The forum is actually probably the largest group that I participate at All Saints, and I've been going to All Saints. First time I was here in 1965. But to that lady's, I just lost it. That lady's question, I need a training session. I'm like in Mike's sermon this morning about fear and, taking on the challenge. I know what I need, but I don't necessarily know how to access groups to fill. And I think we need a structure. And the question is, wouldn't it be possible to set up a website training on access and use and participation in pastoral care, where I could go and learn, over time?
Interesting. Great idea. Great idea.
And that is something that we're wanting. Yes.
Yeah.
And I see Christine writing it down.
Yes.
She writes it down, it gets done.
Yes.
And
This is true.
you think I'm joking, but it's true.
It's true.
And that is what we're here for too. We would love to help you get connected. Call us. It doesn't have to be where you're going. It can be I want to get connected and I don't know how to start. Awesome. We will set up a meeting with you. We'll chat with you for a little bit, get to know you, and then we can kind of help you get plugged in and get you on that road of knowing which pastoral care groups might fit with you and your passions and interests. Yes.
Yeah, and while I'm walking over, you mentioned that pastoral care used to be something that only the ministers did, and part of this is recognizing that everyone's a minister.
Yes.
And that we need to, in fact, if you look in the catechism, in the back of the prayer book, one of the questions is, who are the ministers of the church? And in this order, it says, lay people, bishops, deacons, bishops, priests, and deacons. And so really it's recategorizing that back to what it really should be, which is we are all ministers. And the role of the community is to minister to and with each other. So here, Carol.
Amen.
Hi, I'm Carol, and mine is a personal story. I'm a recipient of pastoral care in the most incredible way. My son took his life 1.5 years ago in the middle of the pandemic. The day before Thanksgiving, my first phone call was to Mike, and that just started this unbelievable support system. And I have to say, to experience something like this without being able to touch, hug, or be hugged was extraordinarily difficult, but yet I was lifted up. And to this day, I'm lifted up. I can text in a minute and say, I can't breathe, and I get a response. And my first hug was Christine. I'll never forget it. She just held on to me when we were able to do that. So I'm a recipient of this, and it saved me. I would not be here without all of you. And I'm blessed. And I get through every day because I'm a member of All Saints.
We love you. We love you.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Carol. Thank you. And I think a lot of people have been, a lot of us have been touched. And I think that's a message. I'm going to jump in here. I apologize. So, which is, I think many of us are trained in a really unfortunate way growing up, which is we don't want to bother other people with what's wrong with us and with what's happening with us. And the truth of this, and Christine, I bet you would say this about that hug, is it is such an honor to be able to walk with people through hard times. There's something healing about it for us to walk with people through challenging times. And so part of the only way this will work, and it really is that courage to be vulnerable piece that you were talking about, Thomas, is you had the courage to be vulnerable and to reach out. And you found a community there. But unless we have the courage to be vulnerable and trust the community, we can't read minds. We don't know what's going on. And so, please, let's continue to grow in trust of each other as a community. Someone just texted in, please recognize the music program as a source of pastoral care. Absolutely. Yes. And this is actually part of what we're recognizing, is that every ministry of All Saints Church is a locus of pastoral care. Because every ministry has people connecting with each other, and that gives us the opportunity to love and care for each other. And in fact, part of the conversations we had with Wei Chung and with Jenny is for the last 2 years we've said, look, if you produce music, that's great. That's wonderful. Music is certainly healing for the community. But let's really look at the choirs, children and youth choirs, adult choirs, as communities of care for each other in a hard time. And Wei Chung and Jenny have really done, and Grace also have done really an amazing job with that. So, you want to jump in with that?
I would also say, Mike, that, this entire staff really, and it isn't just the staff, it's the community. But I would say that, the staff at large really has a pastoral heart, and they try to do that across everything, but absolutely. That's true music, yeah.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. In fact, during once we realized, wow, we're not getting back together anytime soon, we had a number of volunteers write notes to folks in our choirs and to folks who were, and also made calls to folks who were in the altar guild. I mean, the folks who did that kind of ministry, it kind of depended on us being together, and to not be able to do that was very difficult. And so reaching out to those folks, thanking them for their ministry and recognizing how difficult it was to not be able to do that at that time. So thank you for bringing that up about the music ministry.
Yeah, and also the little plants that were delivered to the 20s and 30s. Staci and her husband found this big flat of plants, little cactus or euphorbia, I can't remember. Or succulents. Succulents, right.
I thought that was so fun. That was probably my favorite thing that I did during the pandemic. Right. Just dropping off little pieces of hope. And they were succulents, just so you all know, because I kill every plant that's ever come into my being near me. But I've never killed a succulent. So I felt like, look, this is hope, because this even I can keep alive.
Yeah, those were great. Actually, I had a parishioner drop off at our house for Robin and me a little succulent with a little note that says, "It sucks not to be able to see you." It was really cute. It was
great.
cute. I know.
That's
so,
great. Yeah, that's great.
Just look if there's any others. I have a question, which is you're listening to a lot of people, and this is part of the work that you do. What are you hearing? What is it that we are needing as a community right now? What are you hearing?
Go ahead, Staci.
Yeah, I don't know who said chocolate.
More
but
chocolate.
Yes. Yeah, each other. I think people are coming saying, how do I get connected to other people? I think we miss each other, just as you said. We miss each other. We miss being together. We miss meeting new people. We miss being, close to old friends. There's that sense of it.
Yeah, I think also just the readjustment of being back in person was still kind of like we decided this morning we were going to mask, and sometimes, but we've also decided, presenters can take off masks. But, we're still in that kind of tender, getting back together. And I hear a range of responses. I mean, joy and also sometimes hesitancy and discomfort and being out of practice, people feeling, like it was really tiring just to see people's faces on Zoom, and it can be overwhelming and tiring, to see people fully in person. So a lot of readjustment. Parents and families too. Parents, I don't know how parents got through. I do not know how parents got through other than by sheer will and strength and, grace. It has been so difficult, right? Not only taking on, the care and the schooling often of kids, which is developmentally inappropriate, and then to bear, the suffering of kids who have missed out, which you can't do anything about. That's just awful, right, as a parent. Anyway.
And not necessarily what I'm hearing, but we do also have to recognize that we also have folks in our community who are brand new and started off viewing us online. And in that alone, that is just, it is amazing. And talking with these particular folks, a lot of them really it just came about that they kind of Googled, if really, I have to say, I will add this. If I don't know how many times I hear this response, but folks particularly say when they're trying to find a progressive church, they just type in progressive church in Los Angeles, and All Saints is the number one link that comes up. And I think there's an algorithm that has got us there. But that is to say, progressiveness or not, but the point to that is that there are folks who are finding us, right? And so part of the work now is getting them empowered and finding a place where they can now live out their ministry. And that's happening, more and more, especially as we kind of get back into the groove of being more in person and finding ways to do hybrid, which is another part of this work as well. So that is happening.
That's great. Yeah, Christine?
This is not, it's less of what I'm hearing and more of what I'm sensing, especially following on Sally's comment about this kind of in-between time. Masks, no masks. What's the CDC saying? What's the county saying? And there may still be people in our community who are not comfortable coming back here on campus. And to remember them and to keep, even if they can see us streaming, if there's somebody you haven't seen come back, who you used to see, reach out to them and see how they're doing. I think, especially if they live alone. I think in addition, all of us have experienced different kinds of trauma, and I think folks who live alone, especially at the beginning, were just so isolated, and that's just so very hard. And so don't forget about the folks who may just not be ready to come back yet, and let's keep them included in our thoughts in our community.
So maybe one more question. Yeah, and then we'll end.
I know you've talked a lot about us reaching out, and we're the extension of you. And I know this is a broken record topic, but for so long, I was in churches that had directories, and I understand the privacy issues, but there are people that sit around me that I hug every single Sunday, but I don't have their information. And so after 27 years, I'm still frustrated that that's the case.
Thanks.
One suggestion I have, and this is something I've actually done, Deb, is and I know this is not efficient, so I'm not saying this is the final answer, but one thing I've done is actually reached out to the office and asked them, can you contact this person and ask them if it's okay to give them my information, or ask them if it's okay for them to give me their information. I know it's an extra step, but that's just a tip for what I've kind of done in the past if I've needed to get in touch with somebody and didn't have their information. But I hear you. It's, the directory with the pictures and everything, and man, those were great. Yeah.
Thanks, Deb. Yeah, so as we close, I just wanted to say again how grateful I am to these three people and all the volunteers that have been involved. Thomas's Brene Brown quote, stepping in, we, even in this circles model, right, that Mike and I talked about so early on, it doesn't exist exactly like this that we know of, in any church. And so it is, so amazing to step into that, to say we create a beloved community circle that's defined by growing bonds of loving relationships among everybody who comes into the sphere of All Saints Church, and to empower and care for one another through joy and adversity with no idea, well, some ideas how that might, what that might look like. But then to have this emerge between congregational development and pastoral care into, what it is. And God trusts those leanings. God meets us and, brings out, I think, we bring our fishes and loaves, and, God just multiplies that. So I'm grateful. Thanks for being here today.
And thank you to everyone. So, Staci, did you have something?
I'm just going to pray us out.
Please pray us out.
No worries. This is a lovely poem by Jan Richardson. And the table will be wide, and the welcome will be wide, and the arms will be wide to gather us in, and our hearts will open wide to receive. And we will come as children who trust there is enough, and we will come unhindered and free, and our aching will be met with bread, and our sorrow will be met with wine. And we will open our hands to the feast without shame, and we will turn toward each other without fear, and we will give up our appetite for despair, and we will taste and know of delight, and we will become bread for a hungering world, and we will become drink for those who thirst, and the blessed will become the blessing, and everywhere there will be the feast. Amen.